maybe give yourself some of your own reparenting affirmations. I mean, if I have like when I'm journaling in my inner child journal, I will ask her, I would say, you seem like something's bothering you. What's bothering you? And then I'll write with my non-dominant hand and, something like I'm scared about this weekend or something like that. And my other hand, I could like answer myself like the parent. So you're going back and forth. And then I always write like a reparenting affirmation, like I'll write in my journal, like, I'm glad you were born. You're a good person. I love who you are, and I'm doing my best to be on your side. And you don't have to be perfect to get my love and attention. All your feelings are okay with me. I'm very proud of you. Those are some of the things that you can say.
Welcome to Grow with Robin Breckenridge, a podcast about stepping into the most fully expressed, aligned, and conscious version of yourself. Here, we dive into the real work of personal growth, establishing boundaries, understanding your patterns, building self-trust, healing emotional wounds, and creating relationships that feel safe, authentic, and fulfilling. I'm Robin, a life and relationship coach, and in each episode, we'll explore the tools, insights, and conversations that will help you not just improve your life and relationships, but truly transform them. You don't have to just go through it. Let's grow through it. And let's do it together. Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Grow with Robin Breckenridge. I have a very special guest on today, and I didn't dress up for you, Michelle. I'm really sorry. Today was my one and only baby's first day of 10th grade, and I feel like we should get like a grief day when our kids go back to school, because I cried this morning and I thought, you know what, today is a sweatshirt day. So yes, I am here with all my grief, and also so excited to have Michelle on today. So we have been talking about on the podcast parts of self. Last week, we talked about meeting your inner child. And today, like I said, I am so honored because we are joined by a very, very, very special guest to me. Her name is Michelle Peters. And Michelle is a former model, a wife, and a mother and a stepmother. But what makes her presence here on the podcast so meaningful isn't just the roles that she's held. It's the resilience she's carried through a childhood marked by abuse and trauma, and the courage she's shown in turning towards her inner child with compassion. Like I always say, I don't know how I get through these things without crying. When Michelle and I first started working together, because Michelle and I have known each other for a very long time. In fact, I think I was about 16 years old when I first met you. But our path together changed one day when you reached out and wanted some help and support. And I thought, hey, you know what? Like at the very least, I could teach you some of these concepts. And that's kind of where our new path began. So the idea of inner child was kind of brand new to you. I mean, probably not that you had never heard about it before, but like as far as you showing up to the work. And her relationship with that part of herself was complicated and painful. And yet over time, she has softened towards that younger part of herself, building a relationship that has completely changed the way she experiences herself and her life. So Michelle is not here as an expert or a coach. She's here as a human being with a story, a very powerful story. And I believe those are some of the most powerful voices we can ever listen to. So her honesty is a reminder that no matter where you started from, healing is possible. So Michelle, thank you for being here. And I'm so grateful for your willingness to share. So welcome on the podcast.
Thank you, Robin. Thank you so much for having me.
I am so honored. And I know that Michelle has been listening to the podcast and following along with every episode. So when I was thinking about guests for this series, I was like, okay, I know who is perfectly aligned to talk about this part, which is your inner child. Because when we first started working together, Michelle, like your journey with your inner child, it stood out to me because of how much healing took place. So my first question to you is, tell us where you were emotionally when you and I started working together.
Well, it was like fall of 2021. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I was in shame is what I was in, but I didn't know that.
Mhm.
I was severely depressed and I was drowning in shame. I didn't know what was wrong with me. I had like just something simple that someone would say to me that I used to be able to handle would put me into depression for 3 weeks, like lying on the floor. It was in a very, very dark place. And actually, it was my husband who had reached out to you to uh, ask you to help.
Yeah. And you had tried so many things too. And I remember being like a little leery because I, always want to make sure that the ethics that are kind of in place of not necessarily working with people, they're there to help protect you more than me.
Mhm. Mhm.
But for some reason, and I've done this a lot in this work, like my intuition was like, just lean in. And, obviously we had to put some boundaries that we communicated clearly from the beginning. But I remember starting the work with you and kind of starting in the place where I started on the podcast, where we talked about taking care of yourself. And then we started getting into the inner child piece. So I started hearing more about your story than I was privy to before. And
Mhm.
so I know that you grew up with a childhood that was full of abuse and trauma. And so, what
Mhm.
was it like when I first introduced the concept of your inner child? And how did you feel towards her in the beginning of that work?
Um, I first want to say that I went to therapy. I went to maybe 8 or 9 therapists, and they would all say that, oh, that my voice changes or that my demeanor changes, like, like I'm up and down, but nobody but you ever pointed out that that's my inner child coming
Mm.
out when my voice gets high or I'm, you know, moving. And I thought that was awesome. Um, yeah. My stepdad, my parents got divorced when I was 2. My stepdad started abusing me when I was 2.5. Um, my dad remarried too, and she didn't want me, my stepmom, so she came over with papers to have my mom take full custody of me, and so my dad didn't have anything to do with me anymore. But my mom refused. Um, and my stepdad, I was terrified of him. He was a very scary man. He told me that they were, and when I was in 3rd grade, I think I was 7, and he told my parent or me that him and my mom were thinking of giving me up for adoption. So I couldn't talk to her about it. I felt like she was in on it, and nobody wanted me. I was always late for school, always the last one to get picked up. Um, we didn't have money. We were on welfare. Yeah, it was really, really hard. But you, the inner child, I didn't like her. Nobody liked her. Why would I want to like somebody that nobody liked? But you, you helped me understand because I married a man, and I met my stepdaughter when she was, I think, 5, and she already had a mom, but I still wanted to be the best stepmom for her, but um, that was kind of hard. And then we got married. I had my first son, Philip, and that was the love like I've never experienced love ever in my whole life. And 2 years later, I had Matthew, and 4 years later, I had Charlie. And you had brought up to me that would you let your kids go to school without having breakfast? And I said, never. Would you not feed them dinner or lunch? And I said, no, never. And you said, well, that's how you have to take care of yourself. You have to love yourself. You have to at least have a protein shake for breakfast. And ever since that day, I at least have a protein shake for breakfast because of you. So thank you.
Well, I mean, thank you for sharing that, because I know how hard it is to high level a childhood like you've had. But what stands out to me is I remember, because I was coming over your house when we first started working together. And so I know exactly where I was when we started talking about your inner child. And just like the invitation I gave in the last episode, I said, find a picture of yourself as a little girl. And Michelle is hands down one of the most physically beautiful women I've ever known in my life. And not only is she physically beautiful, she's one of the most internally beautiful people in the world. I mean, you were a model, you are just gorgeous. Your features are incredible. I never would have thought in a million years I would have heard what came out of your mouth when we talked about that little girl. And you found the picture and you had it face down. And you said, I don't like her. She's dirty, gross, ugly. And and here is this, I mean, one of the most beautiful people I've ever been around, and you are so gorgeous your whole life. But that shame story, right? Like when we don't check it, when we don't have someone in our environment to model back our worth, it just feels like it's true.
Yeah.
Right. And because of the level of neglect, like, I know you had mentioned like you were sometimes like the dirty kid in school, or your hair wasn't brushed, or you weren't taken care of. And you internalized the story that something was wrong with you. And so we
And
started, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
oh yeah, no, and I know the kids that call me Smelly Shelly. My mom and my stepdad smoked in the house, and yeah, I don't know how frequently she washed my clothes, but yeah, I don't remember her doing my hair or anything like that.
Yeah. And like, that's not your fault, right? I mean, that's the wildest thing about a shame story. It's like the first lie we told ourselves, because
Yeah.
you couldn't look at your environment and say, gosh, I think my mom, is going through her own levels of trauma, especially being in a relationship with an abuser, and that's why she can't show up to take care of me, or whatever was going on in your mom's world, whatever was going on in your dad's world, where he left and had another family and maybe was contemplating giving up custody of you, had nothing to do with you. But when we're a child, we can only make sense of what's in our environment and with the awareness and consciousness we have. So the best thing we can do is blame ourselves. There must be something wrong with me. And then, right, it starts the story that we try to outrun for the rest of our life. So I remember at that time, Michelle, what we've come to find out, like since you and I started working together, is that you have a diagnosis of CPTSD, complex post traumatic stress disorder or response, right? And
Mhm.
so you were having all kinds of intestinal problems, all kinds of challenges with eating. And so when I talked to you, it was almost like felt like a kinder choice to not eat, and then internalizing that shame story that like you were worthy when you were a certain weight,
Yep.
right?
And
So
when I became pretty, then they like my stepmom and my mom like liked me. They started paying attention to me when like people in the store would say, "Oh my gosh, you're so beautiful," or whatever. I mean, then they wanted to like pay attention to me. And so when I did become a model, I it was so wonderful. Like people finally thought I was pretty, and you know, um and then as I started to age, and I was on all kinds of antidepressants and gained a whole bunch of weight, and I I felt like that little girl again that nobody wanted, like as my beauty was the only thing that was. And I thank you for saying I'm beautiful. I don't feel I'm beautiful, but I thank you for saying that. Thank you.
you're so welcome. And there's a saying, feelings aren't facts, but they're great information. And, we haven't really gotten into it on the podcast, but I plan on teaching, the different things that feelings represent and mean and the needs behind them. But like you just said, I don't feel beautiful. And, that's part of this work is learning how to receive. So often I teach my clients to put their hand on their heart when they receive a compliment and say, hey, I'm going to let that in.
Yeah.
Right. And I do the same thing, because sometimes people give me really great compliments. But I know at the time, Michelle, it was actually easier for you to not eat. And when we're going through the challenges that you were and facing your childhood trauma and CPTSD, like we need fuel in our body. So that's where we started, was leaning into your inner child by saying, hey, would you give her a protein shake in the morning? And that's
Yeah.
something that you've continued feeding
Yeah.
her.
Yes. Thank you. I always feed her.
Yeah. So thank you for sharing that. So what has been one of the most healing parts of getting to know your inner child for you?
Was when I started journaling with her. I had, so we started working like fall of 2021. I think 2020, I think you presented me this journal thing, and this is what I did to it. I couldn't, and this was April of 2022.
And we'll say
And
for the people listening, what she just showed us was an inner child journal, and she scribbled on the front
yeah,
cover. Yep.
yeah, because it's like, you're trying to get to know your inner child and asking all these questions, and you're writing with your non-dominant hand as your inner child. And it's it you know what my inner child had wrote to me was, what would you like to say to your inner critic? And my inner child wrote, stop saying bad things about me, stop being so mean to me. How does it feel to be criticized? It hurts and it makes me sad. It makes me hate myself. I feel fat, ugly, and worthless. What else do you want to say to assert yourself? Leave me alone. I don't bother anyone. It makes me want to go away and not be here. So I was just very, very sad and full of shame and everything. So that was April 22. March of 23, I had started getting harm OCD, part of my complex trauma. That complex trauma can make you panicky or anxious or give you OCD. So it gave me harm OCD, that I was scared it was going to hurt myself. Like I didn't have control. And I texted you. I didn't want to bother you. It was a Sunday. But I texted you and you were in a conference, or you were taking a class or something like that. And you still texted me back, and all these wonderful things, how you love me and that I'm going to be okay and all these wonderful things. And then you suggested that I try to journal with my inner child. And I did. And ever since that day, I've been doing it. Night and day it was for a long, long time. Sometimes it's just daytime now because I don't have much to say, that I've gotten boundaries and I've gotten rid of a lot of the things that would hurt me. So, yeah, I think the journaling really helped. And just trying to tell myself, in my inner child journaling, coming from me, that I'm a good person. I'm a good girl. I don't deserve to be treated like this. I didn't do anything to hurt anybody.
Oh, I mean, such a huge shift, Michelle, from I don't like her, she's dirty and gross and ugly, to that. And I love what you're describing, because this isn't necessarily like aha moments where you just turn a light switch on and it's done, because that's not how relationships work, right? You have to build trust and data over time and lean in. And so what I'm hearing is like, so, I mean, this is probably the most relatable thing we could ever talk about on this podcast, is we all have a critical inner voice. And what we don't realize, because it's like we tune it out, we don't hear it anymore. But we don't realize how destructive that is, and how it is literally like sitting that little girl down and just telling her all the things that are wrong with her, and treating her in the ways we were treated when we were younger. And until we get curious, we don't even know that voice is going on. Like I remember one time being really upset, sitting in my closet, as one does when they're having the mental breakdowns, right? Like, I don't know why I go there, but where I go. And I remember going, it was like, what did I say? Right. It was, you are alone and you can't trust anybody. And it felt so true and so protective, but it was also the most lonely and isolating statement of my entire life. Like I suffered there. And without me realizing that, because I used to say that like when I would get really upset, I would like swim off to my own island. And I was safer there. I was away from people. I was away because people hurt me in my life. Like that's my war zone. That's your war zone. And I never realized that when I would swim out to that island, quote unquote, there was a loudspeaker on that island. And that loudspeaker said that you're alone and you can't trust anybody. And it was so mean. And then I was on that island alone with that loudspeaker. And that was the first time I ever realized, like, holy smokes, I am beating the living shit out of myself in the worst moments of my life. And I'm actually growing the very feeling, which is shame, what you were talking about, the very feeling I want out of more than anything. So you journaling to that little girl was the first time you actually heard your critical inner voice and what it was doing to her and how much more shame it was growing. And what I love about your journaling, and because I've been a witness to it so many times, it's like that little girl finally gets heard. She matters to someone. She's a priority to someone, and that's you. Right. So
Yeah.
tell me, like, what does it felt like to offer like that love and attunement to that little girl now as an adult? Because I know it's so much different than where we started.
Um, it feels wonderful. I feel like I'm protecting her. Um, this past Christmas, my mom had thrown away one of my favorite toys that my grandma and grandpa had bought me before my grandpa passed away. Family tree house from the 70s. And I found it on eBay and I bought it and wrapped it up for her for Christmas. I
Oh
mean,
my gosh.
and I was so happy and I opened it up and I'm like, figures are so much littler than I remembered because I was little when I played with it. But yeah, and I think it just gave me a little bit of a pep inside, like made me feel loved, just even, yeah, it just made me feel loved.
Yeah. And special
Mm-hmm.
because you have maybe the strongest quality I have ever seen in my life of making the people around you feel special. And
Thank you.
I think it's one who you are. I also think that it's a response of like you didn't give it and so often we'll give what we didn't get. Like when you think about the what is that? The love languages, like so often if you look at that list, it's like it's what you're giving what you needed and the way that you needed to be loved that you weren't. And there
Mm,
are so many times that you have made me feel so special and my inner child feel so special.
I'm
And
glad.
it's so beautiful to watch you be able to do that for you
Mm,
and
and
how protective you've become. And I know we're going to talk about boundaries here in a minute, but
yeah,
like that journey too of like, there's a part of you that's like, hey, if I don't mess with that little girl, you don't get to either.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That I have to protect her just like somebody is saying something mean to one of my boys. I'm not gonna let them talk to them that way.
Mm,
I'm
because you
mm-mm.
love them.
Yeah, because I love them, and I'm a good person. I don't hurt anybody. I don't think that I should have to be around people that hurt me.
Yeah. Well, you get to choose now, right? You didn't get to
Yeah,
choose when you were younger
no.
because you couldn't leave that. You couldn't go get a job and pay your rent, right? Like you had to
Mhm.
endure that. So, Michelle, I know that you have a story that has a lot of complex trauma in it. And so I want to make sure that when we're talking about this, because you've done so much work on yourself, that we are aware that like it wasn't just me that came in and helped, that you've done so many different modalities. And while working with me, you are working with a trauma therapist, right? So you had like that level of support. So tell me, because you mentioned journaling was one way that you care for your inner child in your daily life. Are there other ways that you care for her that you could share?
I try to, I don't always wear makeup because I hate taking it off at night, but I try to get dressed and make myself feel pretty sometimes. Or she likes to sing a lot, so I sing a lot.
Remember we karaoke'd for your birthday?
Yes.
And it was a blast. And let me tell you, Michelle, you did the oh my God, Rob Bass, right? I was so impressed because like who from that era doesn't know every word to that song, but you were incredible. I was like, and she can rap too.
It was fun. We have to do that again.
Yeah, we do.
How do I take care of her? I go for walks with my dogs, and my husband. I try to be silly and try to, she never got to play. I didn't even know how to play when I was little. So, I'm silly sometimes, but that's just me. And I don't care. And I dance, making my bed yesterday. I feel I can dance like Michael Jackson. So
Well, you can have fun with it, is what I hear you saying.
have fun with it. I do have fun with it.
Yeah.
I do.
Because when we were a kid and there's no like, front row of judgment watching you, you got to be authentic and silly and where you were. But I hear that you feed her. I know that one thing that's different for you is that you reach out for support when you know that she's up and maybe you don't have, because we're just very newly introducing this topic on the podcast, but there's something that I call blacking out in your kid and teen. And it happens to all of us. It just means like you are so activated that you can't resource like the higher, healthier part of you. And so sometimes the best thing to do is find someone safe, which again, a lot of us didn't have growing up. And so that's one thing I know that was challenging for you because you mentioned something that I've had many guests on here mention. I didn't want to bother you. Right? This theme that like, if we reach out to someone for support, we're bothering them. And if that's not rooted in shame, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
Right. And like, at least for me, and that this isn't true for everybody, but we have some data over time. Like I'm honored to be a place of support. I'm honored to be a safe person for that little girl. But sometimes it's hard to ask.
Yeah, it is. It's still sometimes hard to ask, but I'm trying.
Yeah. But you're brave enough to take that risk. And then you've got now, right? Like because of the boundary pyramid and the things that we've talked about, you know who is safe now. I don't think you're confused about that.
No, I'm not confused. No. Yeah, I know thank God for boundaries. Because before I would just tell my whole life story to whoever and they would, just make comments and that would make me go back to the dark place and cry hysterically. And now I know who I can talk to and who I have to watch what I say around.
Yeah, I think one more thing I would say on that topic is community. Like I've watched your journey now here for a few years, and is it okay if I talk about the community you're part of now? Yeah, so I know that like you found an ACA meeting that you really love, and it's brought some community of other people who have grown up in dysfunctional family systems. So that's been probably really helpful for her to not feel, because I think we all, when we have shame, feel like we're different and we're an alien and what we went through is different than what other people went through, but it tends to be the thing that connects us the most to other people.
Yeah, it does. It does. And I think even with the complex PTSD, like some of them in the group, they don't even realize that that's what they have and they do. So I mean, I feel that they do. It's other things other than it's ACA, it's adult children of alcoholics and dysfunctional families. But yeah, everyone is so sweet there. I love going. Our date night is going out to my ACA meeting on Friday nights.
And what I love is your husband goes with you. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe that's something that he never would have done in his life. But that's what, like, we feel like trauma is a curse, but when we alchemize it to wisdom, the light starts shining out to all the people around us, because we all
Mm-hmm.
need community. We all need help. It doesn't matter how amazing your parents are. I mean, I try really hard to be a great mom. I know you do. And we can't meet another human being's every need. So I love that, like, this Friday night meeting has turned into something that, like, you guys share together and have this new community, and your husband kind of has a new language that he can lean into and new structure.
Mm-hmm.
So keep in
Yeah.
mind that, like, whether it's a 12-step group or anything, like, Michelle has done such great work of continuing to show up to supports that help you navigate, because it's hard to navigate with the nervous system that has been impacted with the trauma that you have.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, great segue. Tell me a little bit about some of the destructive behaviors or patterns that you used to use to manage and tolerate your feelings before you had access to this information. And how do you approach those things differently in your life now?
I I used to be an alcoholic. It was a way that I could be around people. I felt normal. I didn't feel different from everybody. Um, and I didn't feel like they were judging me or like I do sometimes now still. But and I always thought it was after my son was diagnosed with autism that I became an alcoholic. But I was drinking before that. So I quit drinking in June 20th of 2017. Um, but I had, uh, thank you. I was smoking marijuana. I started in 2016 of that. My stepfather was a prescription drug addict, so I didn't want anything to do with any kind of drugs, anything. I've never done anything but marijuana. And mushrooms, because I did go on a mushroom whatever where someone sits with you. That was, I was trying to heal that way, but that was a nightmare. I would drink and I wouldn't realize how much I drank. Sometimes a bottle and a half, two bottles. And my husband sometimes would be so mad at me in the morning. I blacked out. I didn't remember what I did the night before, so I would punish myself. I'd cut myself.
Mm.
um I mean, I would just take anything and just not trying to kill myself, but just trying to punish myself, trying to that.
Well, that's how you were parented, though, right? Like, if you made a mistake or you did something, someone hurt you, right? Isn't that wild that what was done to us, we will do to ourselves?
Till I was 51 years old, my stepdad burned me with a cigarette because I touched matches. And I thought I was bad until I was 51 years old. And I had to literally, that's how my brain thinks. Because I was abused since I was 2, I didn't meet developmental milestones. My brain didn't develop like everyone else's brain. So I felt that I was bad. And it took me to sit there and say, wait a minute. If one of my kids played with matches, that's not how I would punish them, by
Mm.
burning them with a cigarette on their arm. I would say, oh, no, 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 we don't do that. I don't even think I would punish them. I would just tell them how, you're going to hurt yourself. But cutting myself. Unfortunately, my middle son, Matthew, saw a wound on my hand. And I felt so bad. I felt like the worst mom in the whole world. And I told my mom, because I was still talking to her at this time. It was right before I stopped talking to her. I said, "Oh, I feel so bad. Matthew saw my wrist." And she was like, "Oh, well, you got to cut yourself on your inner thigh so no one can see."
Oh my gosh.
And I was like, "What kind of mother do I have?"
Wow.
Yeah, so I haven't talked to her since I quit drinking.
And
So
Michelle, I think, just to touch in on that and for a second, I mean, what you're saying is that even though you were learning how to parent yourself differently and heal, your mom didn't. And your mom remained really sick, and you tried so long to stay in a relationship with her, but you weren't
it,
realizing that it was making you sick.
it was making me sick.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. it was. She lives a couple miles away from me. I haven't seen her or anything for 8 years. So,
Yeah. So, on top of learning how to manage the shame in your life, we had a lot of grief as well, which is so normal. It's why, I don't want to be the dark cloud or the bearer of bad news, but it's why I say boundary work is grief work. It's like one thing to set
hmm
the boundary, but then, we have to grieve. Like for you, it's like sometimes we go, we don't get a different mom in this life, or we didn't get the parents that we needed.
hmm
The caveat is that you become the mom you always needed and the parent you always needed, but like, we are like hardwired to have
yeah,
relationships with our parents.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, I think your story is so relatable, Michelle, because so many of us, used other things to manage our feelings like alcohol, people, shopping, eating. And
hmm
what's so hard is that momentarily it works, right? Like you were saying, like the alcohol would numb you of the shame and the social anxiety and the critical inner voice, but then it intensified the next day. And there's a saying, self esteem comes from doing esteemable behavior. And that's the loop that I was in myself, where it was like, I had so much shame. I would do anything to manage the shame. The things I did to manage my shame took me out of my integrity. And thus I'm back in shame and the spiral continues.
Yeah.
Right. So I know because I've been a part of your story that you are sober from marijuana and alcohol. And then I know cigarettes was something that you kind of relied on. And
hmm
you ended up getting pneumonia and then you stopped smoking. And it's like
Yeah.
you now are completely sober in this life.
hmm
And
Yeah. March 9th of this year, I stopped smoking weed and cigarettes, and I stopped eating. Thank you. Gummies, but marijuana gummies would help me like in the beginning of my healing, when I would go to such a dark place that I didn't want to be here. Um, I don't know how many people know that pain, that grief, that you don't want to be on the earth anymore. I mean, I would never do anything to leave my family or anything. But it was just a dark place, and I would take a gummy and then it would help me, and until they didn't help me anymore. I knew that I needed to break away from it, and maybe I took one and it was a bad time, and I'm like, I'm not doing that anymore. So
So
yeah.
it's this progression of the next kindest choice to you.
hmm
And I think that what I've seen in you is a different level of clarity and presence without being on anything. I
Thank
think
you.
you're even more connected to yourself.
hmm
So,
hmm
I mean, that's a really big deal. Like I want you to know that a majority of the population isn't brave enough to step into the dark corners of their life and the hard feelings and do it without any form of numbing substances that we have available to us. You
It's
know?
hard.
Yeah, it's brave,
Thank you.
right? So I think because to me, the last stage of healing, not that we ever get to like the finish line, right? Like I think we're here to know ourselves more deeply so the healing continues. But that last stage of healing is that we're able to share the light and the healing and the wisdom with other people. And I think that that's one of the reasons you're on the show today. And I know it's one of the
Mhm.
things you get a lot of esteem from in the ACA meetings that you can go in and go, "Hey, my girl did an episode on this, check it out," or "I read this book," or "I've been there too." So it puts you in the place to give us and the listeners advice. So what advice would you give to someone who has or is having a hard time connecting to their inner child, especially if there's a lot of trauma or abuse in their past?
Well, it's not going to happen overnight. That's one thing that I have to say, but it will happen. I would write to take care of yourself, or to take care of yourself. Try to take care of yourself.
Mm.
I mean, and it was easier for me because I have kids, and I could say, oh my gosh, what if I didn't feed them? Um, but to take care of yourself, to feed yourself, to exercise a little bit, to um, get outside and look at the sky and the trees and the flowers and the butterflies and the dragonflies and everything else, the birds, and to just maybe give yourself some of your own reparenting affirmations. I mean, if I have like when I'm journaling in my inner child journal, I will ask her, I would say, you seem like something's bothering you. What's bothering you? And then I'll write with my non-dominant hand and, something like I'm scared about this weekend or something like that. And my other hand, I could like answer myself like the parent. So you're going back and forth. And then I always write like a reparenting affirmation, like I'll write in my journal, like, I'm glad you were born. You're a good person. I love who you are, and I'm doing my best to be on your side. And you don't have to be perfect to get my love and attention. All your feelings are okay with me. I'm very proud of you. Those are some of the things that you can say as reparenting affirmations. There's also somebody, Patrick Tehan, on YouTube that does a lot with the inner child. He's also a good help. He has like a little segment. I've watched him before, where you take like a stuffed animal and you like pretend that that's your inner child and you don't talk bad to it. You carry it around with you. Well, that's another thing that when I first started working with you about the stuffed animal, you told me, and you sent me a unicorn with a light in its tummy. Yeah, I still sleep with my stuffed animal. So,
Do you know that I just got a new one?
Oh, you did?
Yeah, they're like all the rage with the kids. They're called like smushmallows or squishmallows.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's literally the best thing that's happened to me in the last 6 months. Like, and then having my surgery, like I sat on it. I used it as a backrest. I put my legs on it. I cannot recommend that. It was $25 at Kroger grocery store. I'm like going, and I was like, oh, I need to have this. So never underestimate just like having something, even, no matter what age you are, to cuddle and feel nurtured. So Michelle, like what I'm hearing the strongest from your advice is like, one, talk to that part. Like,
yeah.
Shockingly, it will talk back, even though I know this, if you're new to this work, it can sound a little crazy or like
it does sound crazy,
multiple personalities, but it does. It talks back and listen. I love the affirmations to affirm that part that it just hears like someone's here and reparent. Like there is a part of you that has more resources, especially if you're listening to this podcast or you're working with someone or you're in a program with tools. For me, my inner child affirmation that truly changed my life was I would put my hand on my heart because I like to do that. I feel like you connect with your body and that's where your inner child lives. And I would say, it's okay. I'm going to help you figure this out, or I'll find someone who can.
Yeah. Because I remember saying that.
Right. Like, and for some reason, I would say other things to my inner child, like, you're going to be okay. You're enough. That was a big one because I have like the not enough wound. And I know you can resonate with that, but like people would always be like, you're enough, Robin, or like, tell yourself you're enough. And it just didn't land. I was like, okay, right. But when I said like, it's okay, I'm going to help you figure this out or find someone who can, that was doable. And that meant that whatever challenge I was in, I wasn't alone and I could find solutions somewhere. And I'm resourceful. So I know a lot of people and know a lot of people that know people, like we can do it. Right. So that's a really important part, that like we affirm that little kid that like, I got this. Someone's got this. Right.
Yeah.
Not how your parents had it or not the access to the tools and awareness they had at that time. So talk, listen, affirm, reparent.
Yeah.
Okay. So before we close, I want to do just a quick, like little, I call it rapid fire, and every session I call these sessions because they feel like sessions, but Every
Yeah.
episode, I'm like, I need to rename this. So one of these days I'll get around to it. But I want you just to answer with whatever comes to mind. And this is what I ask all my guests the same questions, just to kind of see the individual responses. So, what's a belief about yourself that you've had to unlearn since starting this work?
I'm not bad and I'm not in trouble.
That makes me so happy. Right. Because what does shame mean? I'm bad. And for you, you're right, Michelle. There were so many times where you left interactions with people and you felt like you were in trouble. Or oh gosh, I've been there too. The phone rings and you're just like, I remember at work when I was a teacher, like anytime they would be like, we need to talk to you in the office. I mean, the walk from my classroom to that office I was certain I was getting fired. I had done something horrible. That's such a horrible feeling.
I know.
But you said a couple of times you're a good person.
Mm-hmm.
And when we're a good person or even a human, we get to make mistakes.
Yeah.
Right. And like what you said you would do with your children, if they made a mistake, like touching matches, you would use it as a teachable moment,
Yeah.
not a moment to abuse them.
Right.
Right. Or
Right.
be cruel.
Right.
Okay. Well, I love that for you.
Thank you.
What is I know we talked about this, so you can repeat what you've already said, but what's a small daily practice that helps you feel connected to yourself?
Writing in my journal every day.
Awesome. And I love, Michelle, you have taught me so many things because you're such a seeker of knowledge and helping this little girl. Like you were talking about Patrick, like you've introduced me to so many people and inner child journals and all kinds of things. So thank you for that because, you know, in some ways you've taught me so many things.
Thank you, honey.
So what's a piece of advice you once got that has changed everything or anything for you?
Practice boundaries.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Because we've talked a lot about connecting with your inner child today. But I also know part of staying connected with your inner child has been you applying boundaries in your life and relationships.
Yeah. Yeah. Have to have them.
Okay, Michelle, what is like one book or podcast or piece of information that has helped you along in your journey?
The Bible.
Oh, that's a good one. Okay, tell us more about that.
Um, just somebody recommended that I watch a show called The Chosen, and I did, and I've watched it 4 or 5 times, and I got to know Jesus, and really, really helps me. I don't listen to the same kind of music I listen to anymore. I can't watch certain things on television. I don't like to hear swear words, or I don't know. It's just I just try to do what Jesus would do. I try.
So Jesus has been a support and the Bible has been a support through this process.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I love that you say that because, you know, even though I grew up Christian and really do identify as a Christian, I kind of lean a little bit more on a spiritual side too. And so it's such a great example of like, one, I do think in order to heal or create healing around a shame wound, we have to trust something bigger than us. Like, so the spiritual part comes in, but that you can have any type of spiritual beliefs in this work. And that's what's so beautiful. It's like the individualized part of this work. Like, you're the first one that said Bible on this podcast.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. And it's really neat. So thank you. Thank you for your authenticity. So what's something you do now that your younger self would be so proud of you? That little girl in that picture.
I stick up for myself. I don't let
Put it over to the right a little bit. She's holding a picture up of her little girl to the left. There we go. Perfect.
I was 2.5 there. So that's when the abuse started, unfortunately. I know, but I'm so little.
So
I know.
innocent.
I know.
So what would she be proud of you for today, Michelle?
For taking care of her, for not letting the bad guys get to her, for not letting people talk mean to her.
And I love that you can do all of that and not hurt yourself anymore and not
Mhm.
blame yourself, because blame is truly a destructive approach. It's just going to create somewhere in your life where you'll be victimized. And I
Yeah.
think one time I remember us talking and I reminded you, like, no one will ever abuse you again, ever, as long as you live. Right. And so that little girl finally found someone to protect her. And that's so beautiful.
Thank you. Thank you.
Michelle, thank you so much for being here today and for sharing your story so openly. I know it's not easy. Your honesty, vulnerability, and your willingness to revisit such tender parts of yourself and your story are a gift, not just for me, but to every person listening who might feel unsure if they can do this work for themselves, or maybe they feel negatively towards that part of self. So, for those of you tuning in, I hope you take away that your inner child is not too far gone, not too broken, and it's not too late to connect with. That younger self inside you deserves your compassion, your attention, and your care. And healing begins when you start to offer that, even if it's just a protein shake in the morning, right, Michelle? Or keeping
Yeah.
that picture of that little girl face up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, next week, we're going to continue this series by meeting your inner teenager, the fierce protector of your inner child. We'll talk about how that part of you often shows up in big, protective, and sometimes reactive ways, and how you can start building a healthier relationship with that part of self, too. So, as always, thank you for being here. I am so honored to work alongside you in this work. So, I have a mantra that I'm going to leave with. But before we do, anything you want to say, Michelle, before we close out?
I love you. Thank you so much for helping me, Robin. You're the best in the whole world.
Oh my goodness. I love you. And it's truly been an honor. And I can't ever not give thanks to God, the universe, whatever we want to call it, that, had I listened to what my brain said about working together, this would have never happened. And what I got out of this was to witness one of the bravest people I know walk through horrendous trauma and a horrendous story and find love with herself and different levels of love. Like, I feel like the way you let yourself be loved by the people around you is different.
Yeah.
And you are truly family to me. I mean, we really kind of found a chosen family with each other.
Yeah.
So I'm so glad that I listened to my gut, and I have received just as much, if not more, than you have in this work. So thank you, Michelle. And I know that retelling your story and you being in kind of like a spotlight position isn't the most comfortable for you. And so thank you for doing this today and taking the risk and being brave enough to share your story. So here's my mantra for this week. I turn towards my inner child with compassion. Together, we are figuring out ways to keep ourselves safe. We are seen and we are healing. So again, thank you, Michelle. I love you from the bottom of my heart. And
I
I'll
love you too.
see everybody next week, where we're going to start talking about that good old teenager. So I'll see you guys next week. That's it for today's episode. Thank you so much for being here and for doing this work. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Come connect with me over on TikTok at Robin Breckenridge or Instagram at Coach with Robin, where I share even more insights, tools, and conversations around boundaries, self-trust, relational healing, and so much more. And just a quick reminder, this podcast is for educational and personal growth purposes only. The insights and tools I share are based on my experience as a life and relationship coach and are meant for general guidance. Each person's story is unique, and the nuances of individual experiences can't always be addressed in this format. What's shared here may not be applicable to every situation, especially those involving abuse, oppression, severe mental illness, or systematic harm. If you or someone you know is in crisis, please seek support from a qualified mental health professional or emergency resources. Thank you for listening and for showing up for yourself in this way. Take care, and I'll see you next time.